The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. Hello and welcome to another live episode of Wrestling with Johners, our second live interview. In the last 48 hours, we had Farm Strong Toby Valentine on Monday. Today, we got another awesome guest. But this is episode 297, so just a few away from the magical 300. And we'll talk more about that and the guests that will be leading us up to episode 300 in less than a couple of weeks' time, believe it or not. But today, I've got one of the most exciting up-and-coming wrestlers on the UK scene. He's a graduate of the UBW Square One Academy, making waves in companies such as UBW and Sacrifice Pro. He's the freshest, he's the flyest, he's the finest. Harrison Lee. And Harrison, I got it right, but how are you doing, my friend? I got it right, but how are you doing, my friend? Great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Very nice to be, very honoured to be asked to come on. I'm really good, thank you, mate. How are you, yourself?
Doing well. We've had a busy day at work, busy day prepping for this, but I've been looking forward to it. And as I said before we went live, I've had a ton of fun kind of digging deep and doing my research on the freshest, the flyest and the finest, Harrison Leon. So, but before we get into our questions, just a quick recap of some of the guests we've had recently. And I mentioned earlier that we had Farm Strong Toby Valentine on the show just a couple of days ago, Monday, the 1st of May. And what a fantastic guest he was. Told us all about what Farm Strong meant to him and his fantastic career since wrestling came back in August of 2021. And he's looking ahead to his championship match for Southwest Wrestling in just a few weeks' time. My guest for episode 300, as I mentioned last week, is none other than Nina Samuels, a fantastic guest, the host, of course, of the Nina Samuels Show and a former WWE NXT UK star. What a fantastic guest, what a coup, and what a delight and an honour it will be to speak to Nina Samuels on the 15th of May. But today we got this guy here. I'm quite proud of that graphic, to be honest with you, but there he is in the flesh. Great to have you on, sir. My first question to you, and we spoke a little bit off air, and what an incredible 12 months or so it's been for you. And I mean, we'll obviously go into it in a lot more detail, but I think certainly from January or February last year through till now, it's been a wild ride for you, hasn't it? If you could sum up the last, 12 to 15 months, if you could, in a few words, how could you?
Me in a few words never go together very well.
In a few sentences, maybe. Go for it. It's your floor.
Do you know what? I have reflected upon the past. I'd say it's January 2022 that I made my debut at Square One against Truman Roswell, and then I would say, so I had it got off to quite a slow start in the sense of regularity of matches, I suppose. But I think even if I just look at 2023 alone in this 5 month period, I've done, since my first match in January to now, I've literally doubled the amount of matches that I've actually had in my entire career, sort of thing. It's been that consistent and that constant. And I've had so many opportunities which I didn't think I'd get in my first year. Let alone, my first 2 years, let alone my first year, faced some of the best in the country, especially some of the best that the South have got to offer. It's just been crazy. And I've been very lucky, I think, going to Square One and UBW and having that sort of being my hub and my home has given me access to all these sort of amazing competitors. And some people I think are going to be I'd like to think it could be the future of the sort of British industry as well. It's been amazing.
Absolutely.
Really,
and we will touch upon UBW and Square One, but they have produced some of the biggest names on the UK scene over the last 10 years. And it's no different with the crop that they're producing now and with yourself as well. But to anybody watching us live at home and want to get in touch with the show, want to send your questions through to Harrison Leon, you can do. Send your questions through to us using your chosen device and they'll ping through to us. We'll do our very best to bring each question up on screen during the course of this broadcast. But I mean, the first thing I want to touch upon is your nickname, and like I say, I nailed it in the intro. But the freshest, the flyest, the finest, and the big boy baller. But tell us a bit about that gimmick. Tell us a bit about the persona, the character. Now, I think you'll probably say that it's kind of just you turned up a little bit, but what's the origins of the gimmick, the persona, the nickname? I'm intrigued, and I think everybody else is possibly likely as intrigued as I am. Tell us about it.
Do you know what? I think when I was trying to come up with the character idea, who I am as a person, I think the advice which a lot of trainees get at the start is like, be yourself dialed up to 10, or the complete opposite of who you are as a person. I was pitching all these ideas to Hugo Bloom, who's one of the sort of head coaches down at Square One. And I was pitching all these ideas, and I was going like the complete opposite of myself. And I was just like, just went up like some sort of quiet, broody, moody type. And it wasn't really fitting. And then I sort of had this idea watching, so I used to grow up watching things like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and My Wife and Kids, etc., and all that sort of like all them sort of TV programs, them sort of sitcoms. And there's something about like the Fresh Prince, like Will Smith's kind of character, which I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool idea. How can I sort of build upon that? And then I had another idea separately as a heel character of doing this sort of like the baller with the money gun and all that sort of stuff. And I kind of just amalgamated both of these ideas into one, because they kind of felt a bit like sort of two strings from the same bow. Don't think that's the saying, but
makes sense.
It
makes sense.
Yeah, I sort of felt they were quite similar. So I felt like, yeah, why not merge them together? And then it just was kind of born out of that. There was no. I'd love to pretend there's some really amazing, cool origin story from it, but it's just the things which I really appreciated, like the aesthetic and how I dress, how I sort of present myself as a character. Very much has taken influence from my general style anyway, as a person outside of wrestling, but then also things like the Fresh Prince, things like John Cena and stuff like that, who's like my hero growing up and stuff like that. Like I could very much see where my influences has kind of led me to become Harrison Leon as he is today.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you didn't go with the dark, brooding character. That would have been weird. That would have been weird. But maybe on some kind of like, opposite day or some weird wet cake show, you might be able to bring that character out.
Everyone will say to you, like, getting me to shut up in the best of terms. Like when we were all at Ignite the other day before the show, and I was running around like rampant, just like someone to put like 50p in me. And so yeah, me being some sort of scary brooding character just was never going to happen. So yeah, I'm very happy with how I've landed. I feel very comfortable. I feel very good. Like I said, it's just an extension of myself. Like when that music hits, I don't know, I just feel like I just get into the groove.
Absolutely. I'm going to demonstrate that in a minute with your highlights video. But one thing I want to announce is a bit later on, probably in the next 20 minutes or so, there will be a hot off the press exclusive for Wrestling with Johners. So stay where you are. Don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial. Stay where you are, because you're going to want to stay till the end of the interview anyway. So you might as well stay for the next 20, 30 minutes to find out what this hot off the press, red hot exclusive is going to be involving my friend there, Harrison Leon. But as I said, you were very kind enough to send through your highlights video, your highlight reel to me earlier on. We're going to have a little watch of it. So for any of my listeners or viewers that are watching this right now that might not be too familiar with yourself, they certainly will be after watching this.
Yeah, I'm in this terror, got a head full of stacks, better grab an umbrella, I make it right, I'm in this terror, got a head full of stacks, better grab an umbrella, I make it right, make it rain on them, I make it right, I make it rain on them, I make it right, I make it rain on them, I make it right, I make it rain on them.
You hear the echo, man, I've seen the best go, cause seeing how that meadow, I'm a hustler, her push is pusher, you a buster, a customer. I get to some cook up. Yeah, crack is a chemist. I pack an 11. I'm macking a 7. I clap at your reverend. I see you in NY. I send you an invite. You gon' need you a pass. That's the code that we live by.
Yeah, I'm in this terror. Got a head full of stacks. Better grab an umbrella. I make it right. I make it right. I'm in this terror. Got a head full of stacks. Better grab an umbrella. I make it right. I make it right. Make it rain on them. I make it right. I make it right. I make it rain on them. I make it right. I make it right. I make it rain on them. I make it right. I make it right. I make it rain on them.
Awesome. Absolutely loved it. Watched it back twice before uploading it to my platform here. Very impressive. Great to highlight this video. I know you said it's not quite finished yet, a few tweaks to be done, but certainly that demonstrates kind of what you're all about and your move set. And I think some of the most impressive things about yourself that's demonstrated in that video alone is your size, your height, your presence. That you give off when you come through the curtains. You're a big guy. Like say 6'5" maybe, but you know some of the moves 6'6". I didn't want to tell you that. I didn't want to tell you that inch for sure. Don't want to offend you by but 6'6", even more impressive. And some of the moves you're doing in that ring. We spoke a bit off air. You do your own version of the Rough Rider, of course. You got the big boot, the big swing. I've seen you do an awesome vertical suplex where your opponent's feet touch the ceiling of the venue, which is unbelievable. An impressive blockbuster off the top rope and sometimes off of the actual rope, not just the turnbuckle. And of course, your finisher, the pop style. So tell us a bit about some of the things we saw there and some of the moves that I mentioned, because for a big guy, some of their moves might not be as straightforward as you might seem, but you managed to pull them off all day long, Harrison.
Yeah. It's a bit like a funny story about how my moveset sort of comes together.
Tell me about it.
So Paul Ash and Tommy Kyle are my sort of main trainers. They're the sort of coaches that I go to for any advice about my moveset or what I want to what I sort of want to do. And I think I started out wanting to do like so many of these sort of like, I think in my first training session I did like a sunset flip or something like that, and I was just like, this is amazing. This is what Rey Mysterio does on TV, and it felt like the best thing in the world. And like doing crucifix pins and all that sort of stuff. But obviously, someone my size, it's not like what someone my size needs to do in a ring, and especially like I'm quite fortunate with British wrestling. There's not a huge amount of people that are taller than me, or at least sort of like my size. So realistically, the role which I'm going to be playing in a lot of matches is not going to be of that sort of caliber. So I sort of, when I first started, wanted to do all these sort of lucha-y, crazy sort of moves that I can do, because I wouldn't say I'm like athletic, but I can move quite well for someone my size, I'd like to think. Oh, yeah. And I was like, I don't want to do any of these big man moves like choke slams, big boots, anything like that, because I just felt it was like, I don't want to be pigeonholed. But that's what fans pay to see. They pay to see the big guy do a choke slam. They pay to see the guy do all that sort of stuff. But I was just trying to think of like ways of going, I am very big, I'm very tall. How can I make there's a, I wouldn't say there's like a niche in the market, but like, how can I make myself different from the other big guys that are playing that role? Like, I can still do the big man stuff, and the big swing, which people love to see, but then at the same time, I can do things like the top rope blockbuster, which gets people like going, oh, because again, they don't expect to see someone my size doing it. With a lot of the moves as well, I wanted them to be like cooler moves, and I've renamed a lot of my moves as well, which I think gets a bit. I'm really bad with wrestling move names anyway. it's probably one of my something which I shouldn't admit. I'm very bad with admitting it. But I've renamed a lot of my moves as well to like things that I like, so they kind of fit in the realm of the.
They've got to relate to you, haven't they? Yeah, they've got to relate to you.
Like, so the sort of Rough Rider you mentioned, called the Jump Man, which is a nod to my favorite music artist, which is Drake. And the pop style as well is a nod to Drake as well. So yeah, I just tried to make it fit a character, make it feel more me. There's some people in my training class that don't think you should rename moves, but I'm an advocate for it. So
I think it needs to be done when it warrants it. And I think you also do your own variation of the End of Days as well, a Baron Corbin move. Is that right?
Yeah. So I know it as some. Paul Ash gave it to me as the sort of like cruise control. It's like swing out ends.
Yeah.
See, this is what I mean. I can't swing out something.
I know
which
what you mean.
Tommy Carl's going to be like, oh, it's called this. But yeah, I know it's cruise control from what Paul Ash gave it to me, and then I've renamed it the motion. So, so who cares?
Pretty thick when you got somebody your height and your stature performing some of their moves for sure. And I mentioned about the entrance and the pop you get, the presence you have when you step through that curtain. And we've got to talk about the money gun as well. Let's talk about the money gun. And I've got some pictures here. I think that's possibly Ricky Calvé getting it in the face. But it's different again. It's perfectly in keeping with your character. The big boy bowler, and there's your own notes as well. 200.
Yeah.
Harrison Leon on the feet. Don't need the Queen or the King on there. We got the Freshest, the Flyest, and the Finest on there, of course. But the money gun, and I think that's possibly a recent addition. But that's just amazing all day long. I wish I had one. Where did you get it? Can you get them from Argos or from a local supermarket? No.
The bank of Baller does not tell where. Does not hide the secrets.
I bet the fan loves it. I bet the fans love it.
Yeah. So that was. Do you know what? I think ever since I've started writing like a character and stuff like that, like I sort of said, like I had this money gun idea in my book when I was just started training. So that was like 2 years ago, sort of thing. So I've had the idea and the concept for a long time. And I was just like, when's the right time to sort of do it? And I think I debuted it in the October. But for me, it's like, it's such an integral part of my entrance, and it's how people know that I've sort of come. Don't get me wrong. The times that it's failed me has been like, it's either not worked, it's jammed. At Ignite this weekend, I went to open the curtains and I did it with such force that I smacked the gun out of my hands. I just didn't have it. And I was like, I felt really like lost and naked without it. But yeah, no, like as in it's like the kids and stuff like that love it. They're like always scrambling around to pick up the notes. I think some of the promoters get a bit annoyed at me sometimes because like at the end of a show there's just like my notes everywhere, and it's really humbling at the end where I'm like sweeping them up to make sure, because I feel bad everyone else like sweeping up my notes. But like the kids
you need them for the next show as well, surely.
No, do you know what that is? No, because that is I've got like a really bad like like not like PTSD, but I've like where I reused them once, they didn't work, and I was like, nah, it's too embarrassing. I print them off new every time and it's recycling. But the kids love it. Like I sign them. I'm like, it's usually like a massive queue in like the intervals and stuff like that, where I'm like signing them for the kids. And I think it's quite a nice thing that they get to, because it costs me nothing to print them out. They get a nice little memento to take home, and then they always come to me like, oh Harrison, I've still got your notes. And it's lovely. It's like, it's just the most amazing thing, that part. And it makes me stand out, I hope.
And that leads us nicely to my next question, because of your entrance and your presence, your size, the money gun, you are adored, and the fans come to the show with their signs. There's Tommy Kyle in the background there with some lovely smile, awkward smile. Oh, and Ollie Spring as well on the opposite side. Nice to see you, fellas. But they bring their signs. They're full of love for Harrison, and that's the mums and dads and the kids. And that must be a thrill for you. And I was speaking to another talent last week, RP Davies from the Northwest, and he is a kind of a fantastic baby face. He has that kind of everyman sort of gimmick, comes through the curtain, everybody cheers for him. I think you've got one of them, like you say, you modelled it maybe slightly off of Will Smith and some of the influences from your childhood, but you've got a very popular character gimmick persona with the little toys and magic tricks, and it works, doesn't it?
Yeah, like I think it's so then some of them photos which you sort of popped up were from like, I think it was like my second match. And
wow.
Yes, so there's a little fan that we've got. He's a massive regular at UBW now, and he's like a lot of the other shows. Just what a wonderful little kid, man. And yeah, I think so. My first show I had, we watched the show out the back afterwards, because I was on the first half, and his mum was sort of like consoling him outside. She was like, oh, he's crying because you lost. And I was like, oh, nice little bit of small talk. Didn't think anything of it. Next show he comes out with that sign, and I was like, looking in the crowd and I was thinking, who do I recognize? Is that someone I know from like a church group or something like that? I couldn't work out why recognized her, and I didn't. And I was like, oh wait, no, it's a fan. So that was like a really lovely experience, and it's just keep growing. Like it's been growing and growing even more and more. Like there was a show the other week where myself, Adonis Payne, and Artemis were in the ring doing in-ring photos, and there was about 6 or 7 kids in a row wearing my t-shirt.
Wow.
Another kid's dad messaged me the other week, just being like, he said a happy birthday message sort of thing for him. I was like, yeah, of course. And he was like, oh, he's made little paper notes for his action figures so he can pretend to be you and stuff like that. And for me, it's like wrestling figures were like I let's get like goosebumps when I think about it, which is, I know it sounds really cringe, but wrestling figures for me, it meant so much to me because I used to spend hours playing with them, and for that to happen, and I don't know, it feels really strange. So I'm like, it's lovely, but I'm like, why he's putting me like, there's like John Cena and Roman Reigns and all these people and the fact that he's doing that for someone like me, I just think it's amazing, man. And yeah, it just melts my heart.
Oh, it really does. And like I say, you need to create a name for your fans. Like the
ballers, mate. The little ballers.
Oh, there you go. Absolutely fantastic.
It's easier said than done. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I thought about that.
Once again, it makes sense all day long. So we've had 1 or 2 people reach out to us already during the course of this live interview, and we've got Taj, who is the promoter of Tidal Championship Wrestling. Hi, Taj, good friend. Hello, who is your favourite in order out of Adonis, Artemis, and Memes? So do you have a favourite in order of kind of who's maybe least mean to you? Or
I've got least favourite for definite. Memes.
Yeah.
That guy can get in the bin. And on Saturday, which I'm facing at Board Up Bash, which is sold out, which is going to be good, I'm going to give him a little arse kicking himself. So Adonis and Artemis, I refuse to choose between the two, because that's very mean, because Artemis was there pretty much, I'm pretty sure, my first training session, and then Adonis has become one of my closest friends in and out of the ring, and I refuse. Well, I think actually just by that description I feel like Adonis. Yeah, but I love them both.
Recently had the Odyssey on the show a couple of months back. Fantastic tag team, fantastic individually. Loved talking to them about their rise. And second part of Taj's question there, if you have a Mount Rushmore of wrestling. Now this is always a tough one. I don't think I could do it straight off the top of my head, but I'm guessing John Cena is going to be on there.
Yeah, so I'll put it out there. I'm very basic with my taste. I like the company favourites. It's a really tricky one, because I think it depends on if I'm saying about like who the 4 that I've felt a connection to and I've felt like connected throughout their sort of careers. It's John Cena, Sasha Banks, Rey Mysterio, and then Bianca Belair, which I know are like really 4 really rogue people, and people are gonna have a go at me for having known from the Attitude Era or anything like that. But they're just the ones I have connected with, and I've sort of just stand by. But yeah, I feel like I could. That was just me instinctively off the top of my head.
Makes perfect sense, and I actually agree with your 4 picks. I think they're fantastic choices. I want to talk to you about this. Roy Johnson's big wave with Roy Johnson's Everything Patterns took place less than a month ago, 14th of April, from the Main House Cabaret in Pleasance, and this was the match that you were involved in, and like I say, 4 extraordinary talents. Now we'll talk about the match in a minute, Harrison, but just being part of that show, the experience, and kind of what it means to you to be part of that show. It must have been a tremendous honor to have been asked. But an even bigger kind of experience and honor to have been a part of it with the extraordinary talent that were involved. Give us your kind of overall thoughts and experience of being part of that very important event.
Yeah, so diversity and inclusion for me is a really important topic in my sort of shoot job and in my and wrestling. I think in just part of my life, it affects me. I'm Black. I have received discrimination, all that sort of stuff in my life, and I know the importance of sort of like equity for all races, for all sort of underrepresented groups. So it's really important to me in the first place anyway. And what made the honour, I remember when I saw everything patterned a couple of years ago, but I think when I was just starting out training, I was thinking that is something which I want to achieve and get to the third, fourth year in, maybe. I think I was thinking that, I was like, if I can get him on that show, that would be amazing. That'd be such an honour. So then to get that in my first year was just, it was just, I was blown away. I went to, I think WrestleMania was in maybe March time, and there's a really special moment for me which really stuck true to me and made me realize how important things like everything patterned are. So my nephews and nieces came to watch me on the show in my match, and afterwards I wanted to watch Jackson Hart and Josh King have their sort of ladder match after the interval. So I sort of like snuck out to the side to watch the match, and my nephews and nieces, forget the time, Harrison and Leon there, not uncle, they sort of ran over to me, and I was like, right, quiet, we'll watch the match together. And my nephew's mixed race, and he sort of saw Jackson Hart, and he was like, that guy's got the same skin color as me. And it was a moment which just really he's 5 years old, I think, and it just really stuck with me because I was thinking, Matt, like, he actually sees that, and I didn't realize how important it was to have that representation at these sort of shows about British wrestling. And my nieces were then, because they sort of seen the poster, and they were going like, when's Artemis and Alexis Falcon coming on? And I watched the main event with them, and they were just like, their eyes were like lighting up just seeing these like amazingly strong, powerful women kicking Crowley's and Adonis's ass. Yeah. And it was such an important moment for me where I was like, it really drives the purpose. Obviously I can't represent for women, but I can represent for the Black community, and I can represent for all the little boys like my nephew and the other little guys who sort of see like, there's someone who I can aspire to be. Because I had the conversation a couple of months ago with some of my peers at Sacrifice, and I was just like, I didn't realize how important it was until I had it. When I was growing up as a kid, there wasn't really many Black or mixed race representation, or at least positive representation. I had things like Crime Time and stuff like that, which like they were like, I loved seeing that because it was seeing some like representation on my TV, but having a positive representation in sort of like the British wrestling scene. And so when these little kids are coming up, it's really important to me. So then to get to go to Everything Patterned was just mind blowing. It's my biggest opportunity. Yeah, it's the first time I performed in London under them lights. It was a very I had a moment where I sort of got home and like, I know it sounds really over the top, but I cried a little bit because I was a bit like, I had so many of my friends, so many of my peers, so many people come down to support me in a sort of big moment, and I was just like, I don't know, it was a really lovely moment to know that it was a representation thing. I had so many people like love and support me there. It was just lovely. It was just great.
And what was the atmosphere like backstage? I'm guessing it was, quite a positive atmosphere before the show went on. And from everything I've seen and heard about that show, it was very well received by the fans as well.
Yeah, it was such good vibes, and everyone was so welcoming. It was the first time I've met quite a lot of the guys and girls who were on the show. And then obviously there was the head drop show afterwards as well. So there was some people floating in and out of who were sort of on that show. And it was just a lovely positive vibe. I'm completely scarred by Candy because I realised that I can't actually do that dance very well, and the amount of times I've been mugged off. My sister was sending in the group chat being like, he doesn't know the Candy dance, and it just sends shivers down my spine. But it's something which
if it's any consolation, I don't know what the Candy dance is.
But it feels like it's like Black heritage and Black culture to be able to do it. And I was watching Remy. I was like, oh please. And then the moment I had to lead it, I was like, no. It was awful.
but let's talk about the match then and the competitors, and obviously Remy Adetunji, yourself, MK Lane and Bruno Brown, and just a few snapshots of the guys backstage, looking all serious there, looking all ready for the match, and then, like I say, just reveling in the atmosphere and the fun of the show. But to tell us a bit about the guys that you're up against, because some of the names, once again, may be fairly new to my radar and other people's radar, but obviously up and coming. I have heard of one or two in that match, including yourself, of course. But give us a bit of a rundown of who the opponents were and how the match went.
Yeah, so I think the best thing about that card is that they had obviously such like big reps. They had sort of like Levi and Warren Banks in the main. The tag match with the 8-7 versus the East City Sovereigns, Mercedes Blaze, and then Ronnie Knox, who stepped in. Livy Grace and Ronnie Knox. Mercedes pulled out, and then we had our sort of match, which was like the sort of like breakthrough sort of talent, which was it was given an opportunity for people sort of making their sort of way on the scene, which I think is so incredibly important. And I think that's why as a platform what Big Wavy's kind of set up is incredible, because he could have easily just got people, well, I say easily, depends if he's booked, but like man like Darius and Dan Maloney, all these people to fill this spot, the people who are like actual draws in the industry to fill that spot, but he's sort of given an opportunity to people to be a bit like, okay, sink or swim, like under the bright lights, how do you sort of cope? And the guys that I worked with were it's quite unique doing a fatal 4-way with all baby faces, but they were all just so lovely. We meshed so well together. We all kind of understood what we kind of needed to do, and we were all kind of like just sort of there in the moment. I definitely think I'm the least experienced in the match, I think. And definitely at least from that sort of bigger level. It was amazing. And I got the win as well, which is quite nice as well.
Congrats. Always nice.
Always nice to get it. It just went really well out. I'm really happy with it. There was little, like the ring was tiny, which we performed in compared to what the UBW ring is so much bigger. So there's little things which I've learned, and I sort of, and I also had Tommy Carr watching me, and he was like, enjoy the moment. But there are things that you need to improve on. And I was like,
There's always some critique, isn't there? Always.
But that's the reason why I surround myself by people like that, because not only because they're my friends, but because they generally do have a want and desire to sort of help us get better and to push ourselves, which is all I could ask for.
Absolutely. And although that was possibly only the third incarnation of Everything Patent, Big Wavy's Roy Johnson's Everything Patent, it does have quite a big spotlight on it and a fair bit of exposure, and it's put you on a lot of people's radar because of that one match. So like I say, it's part of this kind of branching out, but just from that one match on that one show, the importance of it has kind of put you on a lot of other people's radars, got you noticed a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a very lovely moment at the end of the show as well, where the 8-7 asked me to actually join the 8-7 as well, which was amazing. Again, because when we first started out, I was kind of looking at that, I was like, that is a cool tag team, and then they sort of became a faction, and then it was just one of them things where I was like, that's just a sick collective, and then for them to ask me to sort of join and represent that sort of little collective, when there's people like Roth, Wavy, Banks and Remy as well in the 8-7. That's just like that. That's such a collection of like black talent to sort of be sat aside, and for them to sort of like see something in me to give me the opportunity to be at Everything Patent in the first place, but then to also have that sort of recognition is really lovely. And just a really, really, really nice thing to there's a cherry on the cake.
100%, and I'm sure there'll be many more of those shows, and I'm sure you'll be part of many more of them to come. But I want to talk a bit about and switch the subject to Sacrifice Pro now, because you've been a part of their journey, certainly for the last 4 or 5 months. And like I say, it has kind of started to get some momentum for yourself. I think you made your debut for them in an 8-person tag match. I think it was based on a novel by Stephen King. There, I think it was chapter 38 at the end of last year. And let's say you were kind of in the driving seat, about to get the win after your Rough Rider, or however you described it earlier. When Kent Nelson came in, he was part of your team, but he kicked you in the head, square in the face, as a matter of fact, and allowed your opponents to get the win instead. And then at the next Sacrifice show, chapter 39, you was involved in a number 1 contenders match with sometimes friend, sometimes rival Tony Sin. In fact, more often than not, rival Tony Sin. And that was a fantastic match. I watched that back a couple of times. And obviously, the key stipulation with ticking time bomb matches is that they are fought within a 10-minute stipulation, a 10-minute time limit. And you handily defeated Tony Sin in that match. And you debuted your new finisher in that match, the Pop Style. That obviously put you through to a championship match at the next show against Tommy Kyle. A tough competitive match against a mentor, trainer, good friend, coach of yours, and he won with less than a minute to spare, and that was a fantastic match. Really enjoyed that match. Like I say, ultra competitive, and you gave as good as you got in that one. So kind of talk us through from there, because since then, obviously Tommy got injured at another show for another promotion. The title was vacant, and kind of talk us through there, because I think there was a triple threat between yourself, Evie Madden, and Tony Sin, but there was another one, wasn't there, between yourself and Adonis Payne? So kind of fill us in and get us up to speed with where we are currently.
Yeah, so Sacrifice is by far one of my favourite promotions. I mean, I love every single one I've worked for, but Sacrifice is just is brilliant for the storylines and everything that's kind of like gone through, and it's like a consistent thing. But yeah, so I faced the sort of journey towards the Ticking Time Bomb Championship when I sort of faced Tommy Kyle, unsuccessful in that sort of attempt, because Tommy is by far one of the best in the country before he got injured. Captain. But yeah, and like looking back at that match, it annoys me, because I'm like, I wish that I could have a rematch with him like tomorrow, because I feel like I've learned, like that was my first match of this year, I think, and I've like doubled, as I said, like I've doubled my experiences that time, so I feel like I have something different to give to him and to push him. So then when the title got vacated due to his injury, myself and Adonis Payne had a championship match at the Sacrifice versus Future show. I would say that Adonis Payne at Sacrifice is just one of the best things and the best consistent storylines that you could see in that sort of show. And it's like, you can tell everyone's just having like so much fun with that. But he's actually not Adonis Payne, he's Adonis question mark.
I was there when he lost his pain there. Yeah, that's right, against Kai Payne. Hell of a story. Yeah,
he has just shone in every single performance that he's done it as that sort of thing. And he was, when I was having a match with him, he was Adonis Kyle and gimmicked as Tommy Kyle, and it was just one of the most fun matches that I think like I had. It was just so fun. I've watched that match back now, and I am just in fits of laughter. Because he's just so good.
He's great at mimicking other wrestlers. I've seen him do John Cena and one or two other things. Just absolutely fantastic.
So, and I did a rap battle against him. So if you go on my Instagram, you'll have to find my diss track of Adonis Payne with it. Sort of giving his sort of storyline. But in like the 7th, 8th minute, Chase Anthony. The absolute waste man, Chase, the waste man commissioner of Sacrifice Pro, came and declared a new entrance into our match. With a match which the crowd was loving, by the way, and we had a couple minutes to spare, and I was so close to securing my first championship win there. And he inserted Kent Nelson in. He big booted me. F5 Adonis Payne, and then pinned Adonis Payne. And as I was trying to get into the ring, Chase Anthony was holding my leg, a la Sasha Banks at WrestleMania. And do you know what? Like, yeah, so it's frustrating because then he's got that championship. He's got this whole being his bonnet about these new people coming through Sacrifice. He feels that we're sort of stepping onto the foundations that he's laid, when actually we're the ones trying to sort of continue to elevate the brand and elevate Sacrifice for what it is. So it lights out. I was hoping to get a match with him for the title. Didn't materialize. Myself, Tony Sin, and Evie Madden got put in a triple threat match, which Evie won.
Really fun match, by the way. Really enjoyed that one.
Yeah,
Definitely worth going out to check that one out. Yeah.
Thank you. And then, yes, that's kind of where we've got to now with the story.
Absolutely. So Evie picked up the win in that triple threat. Kent Nelson came out with Chase Anthony. And
tried to berate us,
yeah, Kent Nelson started interfering or beating down on the individuals left in the ring. Tony Sin came back out and saved the day, essentially. There was the three of you left standing in the ring. So you've kind of formed a little bit of an alliance there with Tony Sin, in solidarity for some of the words he was saying against Tommy Kyle. So,
what's the saying? It's like a friend of... No, an enemy of my friend... No, was it? A friend of my enemy is my enemy. Friend of mine is my friend.
Yeah,
I don't know.
or better the devil you know. Better the devil you know.
That's the one. Let's go with that one.
That might be relevant as far as Tony Sin's concerned. But I mentioned at the top of the show that we do have a red hot exclusive, and the management behind Sacrifice Pro reached out. I said, Jonas, do you fancy an exclusive for the show? And I goes, hell yeah. So the exclusive is at the next Sacrifice Pro show. We will have a triple threat at their 6th year anniversary show, a triple threat for the Ticking Time Bomb Championship. Champion Kent Nelson will be defending his title against my good friends Harrison Leon and Tony Sin in a triple threat at the Bedford Town Football Ground, Eagles Bar, June the 18th. Tickets, of course, are available now. Let's say if you're watching this live, you're the first people to find out, but that is going to be the match, June the 18th. For the Ticking Time Bomb Championship. Kent Nelson, he probably won't be happy that he's got to defend it against two individuals, yourself and Tony Sin. But just looking at that match graphic, of course, you've got the dastardly commissioner standing in the background there. But I don't know how much he was aware of that, Harrison. But a hell of a match and another opportunity for you. Remember, it's Ticking Time Bomb stipulations. Ticking Time Bomb. We've got a 10-minute time limit, of course. But it's yourself versus Tony Sin versus the champion Kent Nelson. Your reactions to that exclusive, my friend?
Yeah, very exciting. Very, very exciting. I'm very excited about the opportunity. Feel like I'm going to have to hit up Tony Sin and work on some sort of game plan to go against him because at the end of the day he's gonna have Chase Anthony on the outside of the ring anyway, so maybe we need to neutralize him and then it's a bit of fair game, and I'm sure myself and Tony Sin would love to get our hands on Chase Anthony as well as Kent Nelson. So no, I'm very excited for that, and looking forward to getting my first championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, yourself and Tony Sin, you have a long-standing relationship within professional wrestling. You've been there together from day one. You've not always been best of friends, more rivals than friendly, I would say. But obviously, he's going to have one goal in mind. He's going to be after the Ticking Time Bomb Championship just as much as you are. I mean, how much can you rely? How much can you rely or trust Tony Sin in this match? It could very well be 3-on-1 if Kent Nelson and Chase Anthony have their way.
I don't think he's that stupid. I think he. It's a good question. Like, why would he side with me? But at the end of the day, at the end of the last show, like Kent Nelson took him out of a match before he was supposed to enter. So he got himself entered into one of sort of the tag team scrambles previous Sacrifice show. So he's got beef with Kent Nelson anyway.
Good point.
But I know that we can eliminate Kent Nelson. Then when it comes down to myself and Tony Sin, he's still not beaten me in any competition. The record draws, I think, 6-0 maybe, I think. So yeah, if I'm a betting man, I'm not a betting man, but if I was putting money on anyone, the Freshest, Flyest, Finest, make it a £200 note, mate.
There we go. The odds are definitely in your favour for that one. And you've got previous history. You proved in that number one contenders match against Tony Sin a while back that you can defeat him very quickly, easily within 10 minutes. So you know that you've got the ability, the move set, the capability, and you know, the credentials to win a match easily within 10 minutes. But I mean, let's not kind of underestimate the champ, Kent Nelson. He's been a kind of a figurehead of Sacrifice Pro since day one. He's won every title, every championship, every accolade that Sacrifice Pro has had to offer over these years. And he's a big guy. He's pretty devastating. One move from Kent Nelson can put either yourself or Tony Sin away. It's going to be an interesting one because most ticking time bomb matches are fought one-on-one. This is going to be a triple threat match. So there's a lot of different dynamics and situations to think about here. But your thoughts about Kent Nelson in particular, because he's been a devastating champion so far.
Yeah, I don't want to underestimate either of Kent Nelson or Tony Sin. One thing which I'm not going to do is pretend like I don't respect all that he's sort of like the foundation that he's kind of laid for the business, and that he's been part of. I think he was part of the inaugural show, and he's been part of so many shows going on since. I'm never going to be someone who's going to disrespect someone who's put their body on the line to continue to grow a platform that has now enabled me to have a platform. So that's something which I'm never going to do. And yeah, he's a big guy. I took an F5 from him as well. And I don't get thrown around often. I didn't like it. It wasn't great. So yeah, it was, I would do my best to absolutely avoid that. And again, I know that obviously I sort of mentioned that I'd beaten Tony Sin as many times, but he's also one of my fiercest and toughest opponents. Like that day where I beat him at the Sacrifice match, he had previously wrestled at UBW the show beforehand, so he was a little bit worse for wear in the first place. So I was able to capitalize on that anyway. So it's not to say that he's not a threat whatsoever. I think they're both incredible opponents. And it's just going to come down to the game plan on the day, who's thinking faster, sharper, and who's made a better deal with Tony Sin, basically.
Absolutely. And just to bring up the graphic one more time, Ticking Time Bomb Championship match, Harrison Leon, Kent Nelson, and Tony Sin. That's going to be fantastic. And the occasion as well, the 6th year anniversary show from the Eagles Bar, Bedford Town Football Ground, June the 18th. And tickets are still available. Go to Sacrifice's socials to get all of that information and where you can get your tickets. Now, that's going to be a hell of a match, worth the price of admission. It's always for a good cause as well with Sacrifice Pro. But you know that when you've got those three individuals in the ring together, that's money, and that's going to be a tremendous match. And you could very well see on the right-hand side of my screen there, a brand new ticking time bomb champion in Harrison Leon. And we did get Tony Sin reach out to me via my socials. And like I say, he's not joining us live tonight, and he's not sending in a question live. I don't know whether that tells you anything. But he did send us a question a bit earlier on. Will send me a question for the show. You were recently seen practically ducking bout shots for your up-and-coming match with memes. Have you taken this practice too literally? When are you going to win your first belt? So, I mean, we will be talking about UBW and memes and belt shots and all of that. But he seems to think that you're ducking title belts. When are you going to win your first title? How would you like to respond to Tony Sin's question? I'll let you recover.
That was such a bad time to have a drink. Do you know what? We could put it on record. He will be the person that I beat for a championship belt one day. So we can replay this message in 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, a year. I will beat him for his championship because he's got a Square One championship at UBW, and again, he can't beat me. So I just need to prove my contendership, get an opportunity to face him, and I'll take his title if he wants me to duck anymore. I can give up the duck in the title belts, and I'll just take his instead. Yeah. That's a good one, though.
There we go. There we go. But Tony, thank you for getting in touch with the show. We're going to have you on the podcast one day to give your side of events, your version of events. But we're definitely looking forward to that match for Sacrifice Pro June the 18th. I want to take a bit of a deep dive into your wrestling fandom now, because I get the feeling that you've been a wrestling fan from day dots. You mentioned about your love for John Cena and Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair, and one or two others. Your Mount Rushmore, of course. But take us back in time. When did you discover wrestling, or when did wrestling first discover you? How did it first come onto your radar?
I remember thinking I was reasonably quite old to be getting into it, because I think I must have been about like 9 or 10. But actually, when I see like a lot of the fans and shows and stuff like that, it feels like quite a normal age actually to have got into it, to be honest. I think it was just a matter of, as in, a family friend was watching it one day when I was sort of like around there, and I was like, what is this? I was really into the fighting games like Tekken. Well, I say the fighting games, it was literally just Tekken growing up. So I love that sort of fighting element. And then when I saw wrestling, it was just kind of like that, just in a sort of TV formatted show, which was just like excellent for me. So yeah, I grew up on the John Cena era. I'm a chain gang soldier for life. And there's people like Edge, Randy Orton, Batista, like the proper ruthless aggression era. So yeah, I must have been about like 9, 10ish when I sort of started watching it. Yeah, John Cena was my favorite. One of the rivalry, and I think this is where I sort of got a real appreciation for like women's wrestling, was like the Trish Stratus and Mickie James storyline was one of the earlier ones, which I remember being really engrossed with, because it was just like, it felt like such a creative, it felt so different to everything else that was going on the show, that I was like, oh, this is really captivated my attention. So yeah, I've been early, and I can't remember a time in my life where I've kind of not watched it. I've been reasonably quite, I think there's a lot of wrestlers or a lot of wrestling fans who maybe have a little dip sometimes, and I never disconnected from it. I think I had a dip maybe when I was about like 15, but that was more so just because the content at the time wasn't really grabbing me, I suppose. But then and then I think the Sasha Banks and Bailey rivalry then got me back into watching NXT. Well, got me really engaged with like NXT, and then it's just been like back ever since then, really, to be honest.
Absolutely. And I want to talk to you about more recent times, because you've posted on your socials Cardiff last year, and that kind of, I think the whole of the British wrestling fans congregated onto Cardiff that weekend. I was there, enjoyed the hell out of it. Just the atmosphere, the buzz, you could feel it as you were walking down the high street. And I hope don't mind, but I've pulled a few pictures from your Instagram just to demonstrate how big a moment it was for you as well as a wrestling fan, kind of reliving your childhood, so to speak, meeting some WWE superstars there, having a whale of a time. There's Austin Theory, of course, yourself and Matt Riddle, and the current WWE, is she the Raw Women's Champion or the SmackDown Women's Champion? But I know they've just flipped brands now. And then, of course, we got Damian Priest, if my picture will actually come up. But a great time over in Cardiff. Like I said, I remember it very, very well. And I can't wait for them to do something on that scale again. But take us back to that weekend, because it must have brought back all of your childhood kind of wrestling fandom memories all back in one weekend.
Yeah, like I never really actually got to go to watch any wrestling growing up. It wasn't really something which was possible for myself and my family. So this was the first time. Well, I think it was the second time. Second or third time I've seen WWE live itself. It was just a fantastic weekend. Like, I went down with Adonis Payne, my brother-in-law, and then unfortunately Tony Sin now, after he's been to me out. And this was in the very hopeful era of all Sasha Banks fans, where they were hoping that she was going to return at any point. So I spent time making a poster, even though I was miles away, more so for the laughs. Wasn't serious. But yeah, no, it was just a fantastic weekend. It's so nice being around. One thing which I've really appreciated and really loved ever since becoming a a wrestler is that I was never embarrassed about it. I've never been ashamed about talking about it, but I just no one I knew ever watched wrestling. So it was like a sort of like a dirty little secret. Like I was watching it, and I had no one to talk about, no one to discuss things with. And so then the moment I became a wrestler, and then obviously all of my peers have watched it. I've had people to talk about it with, and then when you're there's so many people around, like so many wrestling fans. And one thing which I love is seeing so many people feel so comfortable and so happy in a space and feel safe in a space where they're just able to talk about like something they're so passionate about, and they're also excited, and the energy and the vibes. It's just such a lovely thing, to see. And it was such a motivating weekend for myself. Like I met like the sort of photo show like Austin Theory, Rhea Ripley, Damian Priest, etc. And like the moment I saw I was taller than Damian Priest, I was like, you seem like a giant on TV. So I was like, if I'm taller than you, I just need to really like this. This is before I then started trying to bulk up or whatever. That's why like some of my videos in my in my highlight package of me had a little bit of extra weight because I was like, I need to bulk up. But yeah, so I was like, it's so motivating for me because I was like, this is. I like to think it's attainable and it's achievable for me. And I want to. That is my goal effectively. And seeing them just sort of be real people just made it all feel very real. And it really lit a fire underneath me. I think ever since then I've sort of like I trained hard anyway, but I stepped it up even more, did a bulk, doing a cut now, trying to get myself in really good shape and stuff like that. So yeah, it was just a really fun weekend, just spending it with friends, but then also for what it sort of inspired me for, it's sort of been such an invaluable experience.
And were you able to strike up any conversations with any of those WWE stars? And did any of them kind of comment on your height, or did you mention that you were a pro wrestler?
Embarrassing. I kind of like cringed out about going, oh, I'm a professional wrestler, because I was like, I've had at this point I had like a handful of matches underneath my belt. I don't think I could really. I think even now saying that, I feel like a bit weird. I feel like sometimes part of me still feels a bit like a trainee. But yeah, so I didn't mention it. To Dominic Mysterio, because we had a bit more time with him, because he sort of stopped by and I was wearing a Latino Heat t-shirt and stuff like that. It was obviously just before he turned heel. One of the guys that trains, well, at least is on some of our sort of Square One shows, Ian Rosario trained with Dominic at Lance Storm's Academy or something like that. So they know each other. They've got like mutual friends. So we're like, oh, we know Ian, kind of conversation. But other than that, not really, because one of my bigger regrets is to have not taken the opportunity of just asking them for, like, if there's one piece of advice for an aspiring wrestler, what would it be? I think that's my biggest regret, because I think that's something which I thought of probably like on the drive home. I was thinking, oh, that would have been actually, even if they said like, oh, just keep trying or put some size on or something like that, it just would have been invaluable, I think. So
Damian Priest would have been a good one to get some advice from, because I mean, you're 6'6", as we established, not 6'5", 6'6",
yeah.
And he must be 6'3", maybe 6'4", so he would have been a good one to have got some advice from.
A short king.
Let's switch subjects. And what motivated you to want to become a pro wrestler? Then you've told us about being a wrestling fan from the age of 9, and a solid wrestling fan and big fan of Sasha Banks and the NXT, the Black and Gold brand, up until now. But what was that kind of that light bulb moment that made you think, yeah, I could do this? I want to give it a go. And obviously, I'm guessing it was with UBW Square One. But how did that transition happen for you?
Yeah, I was again. It's always been so much I've just been so passionate about. I've always loved. I remember tweeting whilst I was at uni, being like, "This working life is not for me. I just need to drop out and like start body slamming people instead." But there was just no schools around me, and I think I just had a day where I was at home. I was like, I'm just going to Google it and see if there's anything close to us. And there was Square One. It was like a 20-minute drive out, and I didn't drive at the time, so I was like, do I start and then just rely on my sister to give me a lift each time and stuff like that? So I waited, but like bit the bullet, and I was like, no, I'm going to start. And then COVID happened, and then it was just like one of the things, like the timing just never really aligned. And then I just I knew that I would enjoy doing it from a fitness point of view. And when I went to go watch one of the Academy shows, I was thinking, yeah, it would just be a nice little side hobby, I suppose, or whatever. but I can't. I was having this conversation earlier. I can't explain like what wrestling has done for me. Like I can't remember my life before doing this. Like I don't find going to training once or twice a week a chore, and then doing 2 or 3 shows at a weekend, and then spending my time in the week cutting promos or filming and editing, because I just I've never felt so passionate about something in my life, and that's why I feel so like I'd like to think I feel so confident and comfortable in my goals and my dreams and feeling like they're attainable, because I just can't see, with the amount of love I've got for it, why I can't get there. But yeah, I just it's just the best thing that I've ever done. And like getting messages like I had a really bad day the other week, and that's when I got that message from that dad being like, can you send them a little voice, a little birthday message? And I was just like, that's amazing. Like someone thinks that I'm important enough to do that. That just blows my mind. It's just
makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it? Makes it all
100%.
worthwhile. And I'm going to bring up a picture, and I've brought this picture up a few times before, but look at that crew there. There's obviously yourself, Tony Sin, Paul Ash, Adonis, Artemis, and Josh Spicer. But a great bunch, and this would be kind of classed as the new breed, the new batch of UBW Square One. And you guys have obviously come through the system. You're obviously making shows and branching out and going all over the UK now, and making great successes, in your journey. But I mean, UBW and Square One, and you mentioned Hugo Bloom and Tommy Kyle and Paul Ash, and I suppose without them there would be no Harrison Leon.
No, like I can't. I will always give flowers to the people that have been able to effectively give me the opportunity to like live out like my childhood dream. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, Tommy Kyle is like one of my closest friends, one of my closest coaches. I trust his advice, like to probably to a very bad degree. I trust his advice. Like he's just fantastic. And like Paul Ash as well, his mind for wrestling is I know Adonis and Artemis sort of said, but his mind for wrestling is just, he just knows everything. He does know so much. He knows so much.
Yeah.
And when there's so many things, like don't get me wrong, there's obviously some times where he'll be like, try this, and it's like, no, it doesn't work for me. Because but he really empowers us because we know our characters. He knows, actually, you know what, if it doesn't feel right for you, it's the right thing. Yeah, I can't thank all of them, like Tommy Kyle and Paul Ash specifically, because they're the ones I've mainly trained with. And then like Adonis, Artemis, Tony Sin, like they're just like some of my closest mates. Are so supportive and are so talented, like in their character and where they have sort of like evolved. And we're so early into, like, I think most of us have just been doing it like 2-3 years. None of us started. Adonis Payne had like a few matches before lockdown, but all of us are all pretty junior into our sort of career. They're just all fantastic. So yeah, I've got a lot of love for them.
I want to ask you about this match in particular, because I think you touched on it earlier, but this was your debut match, the Square One Academy, Square One show against former UBW British heavyweight champion Truman Roswell. Now, obviously, Truman has kind of gone up the ranks and risen, and his career has gone from strength to strength. But even at the beginning of 2022, when you had that match, he still would have been very, very accomplished. But was that a little bit of a daunting kind of feat for you to go up against somebody like Truman Roswell with an established character and, like I say, quite a few years under his belt already?
I love that man so much, and I think he is one of the most talented guys in the industry. Like the way he does promos and his character work and who he is as a webman. He's always so caring, and like especially to like a lot of our sort of, as everyone in that group in that sort of photo beforehand, he gives advice to all of us all the time about like how we can improve. He's just such like a lovely person, full stop. I'm so happy and honored that I had someone like his character to go against in my first, because I wouldn't say I really had an idea. I look back at that match, well, it was never really properly recorded, but I've looked back at little bits of it, and I know how I felt myself. Like I didn't really know who Harrison Leon was at the time. I had little bits, but it wasn't really fully established. But he gave me such a good antagonist to sort of get my babyface fire against from. And yeah, and it's the match which like I sort of think like I can't wait. I'd love to have a match with him like any day of the week now, because I know who my character is now and how we'd be able to tell such a good, fun, character-led story. And also he's just incredibly talented. Like he just moves insanely. Yeah, I can't praise enough love for that man.
100%.
So yeah.
He needs to be on more people's shows for sure. Everybody
100%.
needs to be booking Truman Roswell. And then just to kind of skip through some other highlights and other matches, obviously your next match or one of your next matches was against Ricky Calvé in March of last year, another Academy show. And then this is possibly your first official UBW show in a tag match alongside Spike Valentine there against that's Tony Sin and
with hair. Tony Sin with hair.
And his partner, I can't remember the name of the gentleman behind him.
Percy Traynor.
Percy Traynor, of course. But skipping ahead a little bit more, and one of your next UBW or official UBW matches was against this guy here, Charles Crowley. So tell us a bit about facing Charles Crowley, because his star has risen to mega stardom, certainly on the UK scene. Across Europe, he's frequently over in Canada and North America now, doing some incredible things for Progress. He really is one of the biggest stars on the independent scene. Started with UBW. When I interviewed Charles last year, we kind of documented all of that, but started in UBW around late 2017, early 2018, and to consider how quick he's progressed and how well he's progressed in that, you know, in that short period of time to now, getting the chance to go in there with Crowley, pretty much a year to the day, that must have been a huge thrill for you, maybe daunting as well, because you were still very brand new, maybe only half a dozen matches under your belt, and then to go in there with one of the best in the UK. How did you feel going into that match?
Yeah, so some of them, like my Truman was my first singles match. The Ricky Calvé one actually only happened this year, actually. So,
right.
But the tag team match was my second match overall.
Wow.
And my Crowley match was my second singles match. So, you know what they say, like throw them into the deep end sort of thing. I was like, oh, great. Working against Truman and Charles Crowley, who are the two of the biggest character wrestlers, like the UBW's produced sort of thing. So yeah, that was a nice welcome. But again, yeah, the Crowley thing is exactly the same. Like there'll be so many people in the south of the UK who would like kill for a match of Crowley. So many people would kill for a match of Truman, and I've got them within my first like 5 matches. And I sort of sit back and I think like, I didn't have a like I wasn't who I am now when I was having these matches. And it's just like I'm so fortunate and lucky to have worked with both of them. They've both been, like I sort of was giving Truman his flowers, like Crowley as well has been a pretty consistent person throughout my career, sort of giving me advice that shows where I sort of see him at where we sort of our paths cross again. He's like checking in, seeing like how the progress and where I had sort of weakness spots and stuff like that, asking like, oh, how are you getting on with this, etc. So like there's that sort of like that bit of care for that sort of next generation as well that's sort of coming through. So yeah, it was very much very daunting to go, because I think the thing for me, again, I was so early in, I was thinking I can't let his star outshine me. I've got to remember that I've got to try and pull my weight in this as well. Like I've got to make him seem as great as he is, as well as him make me look great as well. So it was a lot to try and get my character over and try to establish it, because again, I didn't really have it that established at that time. But it's like, how can I make my character hang with someone both of their caliber effectively?
Yeah, but Crowley's such a pro, and I know him behind the scenes and of course in the ring, and he's such a pro, and he probably did everything within his power to kind of help you that day and to help establish you, and I'm sure he did that. But it's all these kind of matches and all this kind of big jigsaw puzzle that's coming together that's kind of putting 2023 Harrison Leon together. And of course, you are absolutely right. That graphic that I pulled up of Ricky Calvé was from this year, because, of course, that's the
the
picture
money
that we
gun.
showed. There we go,
Yeah.
the money gun. So silly, Johners, but it wasn't quite clear what year that was. So sticking with UBW, and obviously they've been fundamental in your career over the last couple of years, with your training, with the Square One, with the matches you've had on the kind of the main show, and some more recent matches. Obviously, last October, Hurricane Rana 2 against the aforementioned Tony Sin. Your two career seems to be intertwined from day dot. And then, of course, Leo Edwards. He put his Square One Championship on the line in November. And then, let's say, it all culminated. The end of 2022, you were the UBW breakout star. So congratulations, my friends. And I think just with the things that we've documented and highlighted there certainly shows that you were very deserving of that accolade on the UBW end of year awards. Was you expecting it? Was you shocked when you heard the news? How did you feel when that broke on UBW socials that you were the breakout star of 2022?
Yeah, it was lovely. Obviously, it's nice to get that sort of acknowledgement. I genuinely, and I'm not saying this to like make myself seem humble or something like that. I do think someone like Tony Sin, like, he had a fantastic year, like culminating again recently this year, winning the championship at Square One, and the way that he's become such a hated figure is just outstanding. And I was against people in that round, like again against Artemis, who again has a fantastic year. Josh Spicer, who won the Young Lions Championship and again had a fantastic year as well. So I did feel like low-key a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know why because I hadn't really achieved a huge amount, but it's still a lovely thing to have obviously got. But everyone I was kind of up against in that sort of category thing were just incredible and will go on to amazing things. But yeah.
But when you think about your rise and what you've done in developing your character and developing your in-ring work, and of course the money gun, that all kind of boils down into kind of one picture. And at the end of it, you're a huge fan favorite, and I think a very deserving winner of that accolade. And that brings us kind of up to speed with UBW, and we got this match to look forward to. It's yourself versus Memes, the Bulldog Bash. And this is just around the corner. Do you have a date for us here, Harrison, as to when this is going to be happening? It's probably at the bottom of
this Saturday. Yeah, this Saturday.
It's at the bottom of the screen there. My ticker was hiding it, but Saturday, May the 6th. From Brandel School Bulldog, but this has got a bit of a history, a bit of a story behind it, and I think possibly at one of the last UBW shows, and this is possibly what Tony Sin was referring to regarding ducking bout shots, or having a bit of practice trying to duck bout shots, and Memes certainly going to town there. You certainly feeling worse for wear, but give us a bit of insight, especially for anybody that might not be up to speed with UBW. What's going on there, and what's built or led to this match with Memes this coming Saturday?
Yeah, so WrestleMania 5 obviously was our sort of one of our biggest shows of the year. Memes defended his United Championship wrestling belt against myself, Sunset Skip, and Leo Edwards, and I pretty much had his number. I was kicking out of everything he was kind of giving me towards the end. And he resorted to, because he's the undisputed champion, he's got 2 belts. He went to go use one, nicked the ref ticket off him, and behind his back used the second belt to clock me in the face and pin me for 3. So I have a bit of retribution to sort of get against him. Obviously, at the same show at WrestleMania 5, which is all available on the sort of UBW YouTube, there was the Odyssey, so Artemis and Adonis Payne, which were formerly part of the Meme team, sort of turned their back on him as well. So he's kind of like left on his own now. He's lone ranging without the Meme team, but now it's a singles match, so he's not protected by no DQ, and he can't get a championship belt attack on me. And as sort of alluded to by Tony Sin, on my Instagram, I sort of did a little get ready with me as I sort of prepared for this fight, and I enlisted Adonis Payne to sort of help me do a few duck belt shot ducking and diving tactics as well. So definitely check that out if you do. It's quite funny. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this fight. He's someone who I've wanted to face for a long time. Someone I've wanted to shut up as well, because I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with memes, which I know you have.
A few times.
Everyone, because it's all memes. It's all about memes. So I like to humble him a little bit. He's sort of called me a rookie, which I appreciate. I've got nowhere near as much experience than him. But what I lack in experience, I make up in size. I'm bigger than him. I'm faster than him. I'm stronger than him. And I'm going to put him in his place Saturday.
And that's going to be an interesting match because, like I say, you're 6'6", and Memes is a tall fellow. I'm guessing he's about 6'3", 6'4". So two big guys in there. And Memes is, let's say, he's definitely been putting in the hours in the gym recently and working hard. And it's just going to be a fun match. Definitely looking forward to this for sure. So I wish you the best of luck with that one. And we touched on it earlier on that you have been branching out across the country and the likes of UKPW. And I believe that was February, so earlier on this year, against the 8-7. Obviously, United. Not sure if you've made your official debut for United yet, but sort of say a bright future there. And then, of course, this past weekend's, it's that guy again, Tony Sin, for Ignite Pro Wrestling in Boreham Wood, and the bitter ends, and that was a breakout singles match against Tony Sin.
Johners, do you want to ask who won that match?
Well, you did mention like a 6-0 to yourself, so I'm assuming that would have been your 6th victory against Tony. I'm good at maths. I'm good at maths. I can count to 6. But so many other places we mentioned Sacrifice, UBW, and everything patterned. So you must be pretty thrilled with how your career is going in terms of branching out, more and more companies coming on board, more and more debuts, and more eyeballs on the big boy bowler.
Yeah, no, it's lovely, and it really is. Like we've kind of said, like I think especially that sort of little group of us are quite humbled by the fact of like how many opportunities we're kind of getting with different companies and people seeing something in us and sort of booking us on their shows, which has been really lovely. I'm looking forward to more opportunities that I've got. So yeah, the United show I made the debut back in February. I want to say February, I think, and then. Should be appearing for them very soon as well. Yeah, it's been lovely. It's such an honor where people we're sharing locker rooms with some like the best talent that are sort of like dipping in and out of the country.
Yeah.
And having opportunities like that match against the 8-7, which is what we sort of mentioned earlier, like just didn't expect to get that so early on. So yeah, it's been incredible. And I'm like really looking forward to hopefully getting more opportunities to prove myself and help make the industry as good as it can be, and get more people involved and getting more people, more fans in seats and enjoying wrestling. Because I generally think there's nothing like it. Like it's such an amazing sport. It's such an amazing thing to watch. Like when my friends have come to watch it, who've got no context with wrestling at all, they're like, this is the best thing ever. So I want to keep helping growing all these different companies and stuff like that as well. That would be a lovely goal.
Yeah, it's surprising how easy you can hook a non-wrestling fan, either by just putting into the VHS. You can tell how old I am. Flicking on the network, the WWE network, or just taking into a show, and you can just hook them straight away. But a few people that have reached out, and let's just bring up. So this person is just coming up Facebook user, but I think this is a good friend of mine, Jay White, promoter from Immortal Wrestling down my neck of the woods. The first time that he met Leon was at a UBW show. An absolute pleasure to chat with. Loved talking to him, and he's also put out a bit of a dream match. How about Harrison Leon versus Tommy Kyle versus Truman Roswell? Now you faced those two individuals one-on-one, triple threat match. That would be pretty tasty in my books. What do you think about that one as a bit of a dream match for you?
That'd be very fun because Truman Roswell took one of my first training sessions. Tommy Carr they used to tandem us. They were like our parents that tandemed trained us. So that it'd be like a fighting mum and dad a little bit. But yeah, no, I'd be very keen for that one. I mean, once Tommy Carr's legs healed up, if there's any promotions that want to that want that match, happily do that.
Oh, I'd love to see that either in a UBW ring or a sacrifice ring or anywhere for that matter. And who knows, after June the 18th, it could be for the Ticking Time Bomb Championship with you as the defending champion, my friend. And one more time from Jay White. He's put John has plug hashtag book Harrison Leon. Absolutely all day long. Book that man. And a good friend of the show, Richie, reached out before we went live tonight, and his question will pop up as soon as. Here we go. Are there any promotions? Oh, here we go. One more time. Come on, it will work. Are there any promotions you would like to wrestle for in 2023 you haven't done so already? So you're already branching out far and wide, getting a lot of eyeballs on Harrison Leon, a lot of people on your radar, or you're appearing on their radar. But any promotions you might have your eye on in particular?
Oh, that's good, really good question.
Thanks, Richie. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. To be honest, there's a few. I feel like I don't really understand like my level of what I can what I can attain and what I can achieve this year. But I think they had one down in South London, the Coliseum, which looked quite cool. This weekend is gone.
Wrestling, yeah, absolutely doing some great things.
Yeah. We're going up to Future in the end of May as well, which will be for Sacrifice vs Future Part 2, which is quite exciting. I'd love to do some abroad ones. I think again, I don't know if I'm even ready for that level yet, but I'd love to get some sort of like abroad bookings as well. Like Lucha Libre Spain, I think it looks quite cool. Yeah, to be honest, I'm just humble and appreciative of anything I can kind of get at this moment in time. It's every opportunity that I can sort of get Harrison Leon out there, and yeah, just have a bit of fun and have a bit of entertainment, being an entertaining character for any show sort of thing. So
absolutely exciting times, and I'm sure there can be many more debuts to come between now and the end of 2023. And speaking of the end of, I'd say before we draw a close to my wonderful interview with Harrison Leon, I just want to remind people who my guests are between now and the end of May. And as I said, my interviews for May actually stop on the 15th of May because the back end of May I'll be busy doing work for Progress and going to shows up and down the country. So my first or my next guest, and this is a busy week for Jonas. Crikey, I had Toby Valentine on the Monday, Harrison Leon today on the Wednesday, and Friday I've got another live interview once again with Immortal Wrestling Jay White, and not that Jay White. His show is coming up on May the 27th from the Venom nightclub in Westbury. And I'll be having Jay back on the show to hype up and talk all about the matches that have been announced, and maybe one or two exclusives on that show regarding matches that haven't been announced yet. But Jay White from Immortal Wrestling will be joining me in 2 days' time. And then we've got this guy here, Callum Newman, the Prince of Pace, coming on the show next Wednesday, which is going to be May the 10th. And I've got his little ticker just at the bottom there. But Callum Newman is going to be joining me next Wednesday. So just a week away before the Prince of Pace comes onto the Wrestling with Jonas podcast. Such an incredible talent, one of the best UK wrestlers on the circuit. He is branching out all over Europe, and I think he deserves to be worldwide, to be honest with you. One of the finest wrestlers on the UK scene, and that's Callum Newman next Wednesday. And then, of course, I mentioned earlier, but the host of the Nita Samuels show, Nita Samuels, will be gracing us with her presence for episode 300, and that's just a couple of weeks around the corner. Less than a couple of weeks, as a matter of fact. Monday the 15th of May, Nita Samuels will be joining me live on the Wrestling with Jonas podcast on all three of those dates I've just mentioned, 8 p.m. sharp in the UK, 3 p.m. Over the Eastern Standard Time, over the Eastern Board of the US. But Harrison, it's been awesome speaking to you for nearly an hour and a half now. But for any of my listeners or followers out there that want to get in touch with you, learn a bit more about Harrison Leon, reach out, get in touch, say hi, or maybe watch some of your footage, where can they do so? And if it helps, I do have a little ticker that's running along the bottom of the screen with all of your socials. But go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, so Harrison Leon UK on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I try TikTok. Don't know if I'm necessarily good at it. It's a bit of the generation below me. So yeah, I'm all up on all that sort of stuff. And again, yeah, main companies where I've sort of got match footage is like we are UBW, Sacrifice Pro, etc. So they will be all on YouTube for you to watch. You could be one of like my nephews and nieces who pretty much are probably the only people who watch my matches on the show. But yeah, they're all up on YouTube.
But a very, very bright future. Excited for your future. Like so, you first came onto my radar last year. We met obviously at one of the summer shows for UBW. Feel the Heat, I think was the name of this show, and spoke to you backstage. Fantastic show. But it's been incredible to see your rise. And you do have some merch as well, don't you? Now I do have this picture of you looking pretty fly, pretty fresh, pretty fine in that t-shirt.
Yeah.
Tell us about that t-shirt and where we can get our hands on it.
Yes. So I need to update my shop actually. So I've got the old design on the website, which you can find on my Instagram bio. But otherwise, they are available via DM or via any sort of shows that I'm at limited sizes. But yeah, very much love that t-shirt, and that's why you can tell I'm a John Cena fan, because it's very cartoon heavy and friendly.
It jumps out at you. It's beautiful. Yeah, love the colours. But that is your latest design as well.
Yes,
isn't it?
that is my latest design. But obviously, I've got blonde hair now, which is a new exclusive for you, Johners.
Another exclusive.
Another exclusive there. But yeah, no, that is my latest t-shirt, which I love myself. So yeah.
There we go. And before we say goodbye, if you've got any closing words, a final message for your fans, followers, friends, maybe any of your rivals, maybe if Tony Sin's tuning in, but if you've got a closing message from Harrison Leon, what would it be?
I've given Tony Sin enough of my time on this podcast. I'm very fortunate, very grateful for everyone that sort of has come out and supported. So every parent that's bought their sort of kids my sort of merch before, or they bring them to the shows because they're sort of like wanted to come watch. Like, I think it's just the most amazing thing. I love it so much. And yeah, I'm very grateful for the friends that I've made on this journey so far, and the ones which I've sort of seen go on to do great things, and sort of are sort of inspiring the sort of next generation of us, sort of like in the scene as well. So yeah, I'm just very, very fortunate, very lucky. I feel very grateful that I found something which I love so much. And yeah, hopefully see a lot of people at sort of shows moving around. And yeah, more opportunities to get more ballers, and yeah, keep growing the brand. So that'd be amazing. And thank you as well for having me on. It's been really lovely. It's been a great chat.
Honour and pleasure. Absolutely, thoroughly enjoyed this. But Harrison Leon, my guest for episode 297. I'm really excited by your future. Going to be keeping my eyes very firmly peeled and watching your success and your career as it unfolds. But thank you for your time, my friend.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.